for this announcement from Solana Energy, Sub 32 and Absa CIP. We are launching what is probably one of the most exciting renewable energy projects in the region at the moment. For those who don't know me, my name is Mark Ashton. I recognize most of the names from the world of media. It's nice to see you guys again, and thank you for giving up your time. We will make a copy of the presentations available, and we will share any imagery that you want in respect to this. If you want to schedule any follow-up questions, you have got my contact details as well. I'm joined today, Ahmed Motara, Head of Business Development for Solana Energy, Talhah Patel, representing South 32 Hillside Aluminium, and then Justin Schmidt and Dumisani Mkhonza from Absa Corporate Investment Banking. The idea is to try and make this session as interactive as possible. Obviously, any questions that might come up. We will be sharing some additional imagery tomorrow. There will be an official launch of the Academy, and there will be some follow-up media in respect of some of the generation projects. Cognizant of time, so with that, Ahmed, I'm going to hand over to you.
Thank you, Mark. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for your time and attending this briefing session today. We are so pleased to be able to officially announce the start of operations at Solana Energy today in partnership with South 32 and in collaboration with Absa. Now, there are a number of reasons why this is such a compelling project, given the current energy supply and climate crises that we're faced with. But we believe what makes this project even more unique is that it is a project that is entirely supported through ESD funding, Enterprise and Supply Development Funding, and it's the only one of its kind in South Africa, specifically within the solar industry. And as you know, in South Africa, the intent of the ESD framework is to provide companies with a guide and an incentive to invest in, develop, and support really important stakeholders in their businesses. Thriving businesses should exist within thriving communities. And the challenge that we faced is that many companies in South Africa view ESD as a convenient way to manage risk, and it's often viewed as a tick box exercise. And I think what this project demonstrates is just how powerful ESD can be if used correctly and with the right intent. And the measurement of success on this project is really going to be seen in the impact that it will deliver to the Richards Bay and King Cetshwayo district. And I will touch on these targets in a few minutes. So, as I mentioned, there really are a number of reasons why this project is so compelling, specifically within the South African context. And if you will allow me, I'd like to spend a few minutes just touching on some of the more important factors that we've considered in the development of the Solana Energy plan. Now, the climate crisis, as I'm sure you're all aware, is changing everything that we've taken for granted. The impact on our world is catastrophic, and we've seen a lot of this come out through COP27, during the recent climate summit that was held in Egypt. We're experiencing heat waves, record temperatures all over the world, and in parts of the Middle East, Africa, and Pakistan in particular, we're now starting to see temperatures that are regularly in excess of 50 degrees Celsius. And the climate crisis, because of this increase in temperatures that we've been faced with, is disrupting the water cycle on Earth. We've got 96% of the extra heat that's trapped in our oceans. And with these rising temperatures, we're beginning to see considerably more severe storms. I mean, we see these with the Category 5 hurricanes that the US has to deal with, and the Caribbean. We see this through really extreme typhoons that are taking place out in Asia. And what's happening is, because of the torrential rain that these places in the world are faced with, it leads to extreme flooding and devastation. And we've seen this across the US, we see it in Europe, and we see it in Asia. And in the Middle East, I'm not sure if you would have picked up, but last week in Jeddah, they received 6 years worth of rain in the space of a couple of hours, causing massive flooding and damage to infrastructure. And we're not immune from the climate crisis in South Africa. This year, earlier during the first quarter, we saw significant rain and flooding that's hit the KwaZulu-Natal province. And Santam, which is one of South Africa's largest short-term insurers, basically said that this was a once-in-a-30-year event. And the effect of the floods in KwaZulu-Natal was to wipe off about 2% from the GDP of this region. And KwaZulu-Natal, if you know, is the second largest contributor to GDP within the country. So to have that kind of impact because of the climate crisis is significant. And yes, I know it seems like a paradox, but the climate crisis is also causing more droughts as rising temperatures cause water to evaporate from the ground. And these droughts, combined with very hostile conditions, are causing the wildfires that you pick up in Australia and in California. And it's forcing people to move. The United Nations estimates that at the end of this century, we will have to deal with 1 billion climate refugees as people seek to move and find more hospitable conditions to live in. And it has several causes, the climate crisis, but the single biggest contributor to the issues that we're faced with in terms of this crisis is that we still burn fossil fuels for energy. About 80% of the contribution towards the higher temperatures, towards the CO2 emissions, are caused through the burning of fossil fuels in order for us to generate energy. And we no longer have a choice. If you listened to the discussions that happened at COP27 and the latest thinking, we really, as a species, as a planet, under significant pressure to address the issues of climate change. And we need to see if we can get to the 1.5 degrees rise in global temperature as the target that's been set in order for us to avoid real catastrophe. And a really significant point that I want to stress that's often lost in the public discourse when it comes to the climate crisis is that in order for us to maintain the rise in global temperature to 1.5 degrees, it brings along with it a $22 trillion cost to the global economy. And that's reflected in fossil fuels that are owned by companies that simply cannot be burnt. If we burn those fossil fuels, we rapidly exceed the 1.5 degrees. So there are some significant issues that affect us all. If you take these companies that own these fossil fuel reserves, they in turn are owned by sovereign wealth funds, they're owned by hedge funds and pension funds in which we are all invested. So it's a reality that we are all faced with and something that we're all going to have to deal with. And if that's not bad enough, if we look at the trends during 2022, starting in late 2021, and the massive supply crunch and structural supply issues in South Africa that we've had to deal with, along with rising energy prices, really has provided another reason why businesses and homes are under increasing pressure to stabilize and to secure their future into the energy. But it's almost as if this perfect storm has created a perfect opportunity for us. And that's really around ushering in and accelerating a move from energy through burning to energy without burning. And there are some significant developments that have happened within the solar industry that actually make this market primed for massive growth as we move forward into the future. In 2014, solar energy was the cheapest source of energy for just 1% of the world's population. In 2019, it was the cheapest source of energy for 2/3 of the world's population. And by 2024, solar energy will be the cheapest form of energy on the entire planet. And there are already predictions that by 2026, as the supply side is sorted out and as more capacity comes on stream, so that suppliers are able to produce more solar panels, more inverters and batteries, prices are even predicted to fall further. So from a pricing point of view, from a cost point of view, we are at the point in time at the moment where it is now cheaper to install solar energy and use that as your primary source of power generation compared to any other power source that's out there. And whilst load shedding has dealt a critical blow to our economy, we know the effects that it's had on the economy. What it's also done is it's prompted government to change legislation and to allow for more decentralized generation environment. And the change has resulted in several sizable generation projects that are being announced during this year, whether they be across multiple industries, across different mines, across different segments. This industry is set to boom. And if you look at the developments in particular on the finance sector, because that's another really important component of preparing for growth within this industry. Recent changes in particular, I'm sure you would have seen, Absa recently announced the raising of a 2.6 billion Rand green bond. If you look at some of the other developments on the financing sector, what's happening is all of these key considerations, all of these key factors that are required to support the growth are beginning to align perfectly. And what about jobs? the solar market in South Africa is expected to grow at a compounded annual growth rate of 29% for the next 5 years. According to SAPIA, which is the South African Photovoltaic Industry Association, for each megawatt of installed energy, solar energy, 41 jobs are created across the South African solar industry value chain. And based on these calculations and the forecasted amount of generation capacity on solar that's expected to come on stream, the solar PV industry in South Africa is expected to consistently create between 38,000 and 40,000 full-time jobs per year between 2023 and 2030. And by the time we get to 2030, the market will also be supporting between 11,000 and 13,000 operations and maintenance jobs per year. Feeding into this demand for skilled resources is absolutely essential, especially when we talk about the levels of unemployment that we're faced with. So the importance of the investments made by South 32 to accelerate the transition to energy without burning in this area, and to do so with a firm commitment to not just democratize access to solar, but to democratize access to the opportunities that solar energy presents, cannot be underestimated. In 2021, Richards Bay, the area that we are located in, exported 161 billion rand, making it the third largest exporter in South Africa, and it contributed a positive trade surplus of 135.2 billion. This is and remains a strategically important node for South Africa. So where better to start than here? So how do we do it? How do we craft a plan that helps us unlock value for businesses, big and small, for homes, through savings on energy costs, through a reduction in the carbon footprint? And how do we create value for our environment through a reduction in the CO2 emissions? And importantly, I think, the question that we asked ourselves is, can we do this in a way that creates jobs, new ventures, and helps build the skills capacity that is so sorely needed within this market? Because let's face it, we believe that capitalism has a problem. The system that undergirds much of our way of life is exacerbating injustice and inequality. Women still earn less. The share of the bottom half of the world's population is 2%. And in South Africa, we have frightening levels of unemployment, and we have entire sections of our population that are excluded from our economy. The playing fields clearly are not level. And even as we, as a society, are awash in new thinking, in new technology, new gadgets, we somehow do not know how to address the fundamental problems at the root of it all. And the tool that we've used at Solana Energy to help us navigate our way through all of these challenges, all of these issues, is something that we refer to as moral clarity. This is not an ideology, it's not righteousness. What moral clarity is doing the right thing because it's right, not for fear of sanction or an expectation of reward. It is a clarity of the demands that we are allowed to make on others. It's to never confuse what we ought to do with what we can do. No one ought to starve, no one ought to be discriminated against, and no one ought to profit from the suffering of others. These are not personal preferences, they are moral imperatives which we believe that many people subscribe to. And in businesses, moral clarity means viewing stakeholder capitalism through a lens of opportunity as opposed through a lens of risk, and designing business models and systems that are inclusive and look to share value equally across the ecosystem. And this is how we approach the challenge on Solana Energy. It's not just about designing a solar business, it's designing a solar business that's just, fully transformed, and very firmly rooted in moral clarity. So in our first year of operations, there's a number of things that we will focus on as Solana Energy. And the first one that I would like to touch on the right-hand side of the presentation is the Solana Training Academy. We are seeking to maximize the impact of this project, and that is one of the reasons that's led to the setup of the Training Academy. The facility is absolutely amazing. We're out in Richards Bay at the moment, and tomorrow we've got the formal launch of the Academy. It's the first of its kind in South Africa that offers a combination of theory and practical face-to-face training. We opened our doors to training on the 12th of September this year with the first intake of 14 students. that comprise 3 small Black-owned electrical businesses from the area, along with 11 unemployed youth that we recruited from Richards Bay. And all of these students have undergone an intensive 10-week, carefully curated Solar Energy Academy program and the General Solar Knowledge and Skills program. And both of these programs effectively qualifies these candidates to write the SAPVIA Green Card exam, which is the current industry standard for solar in South Africa. At the end of this program, the initial program, which we concluded over the past week, we are taking all 14 candidates and they are moving directly into full-time jobs within Solana Energy in order to work on different areas of the business. And through the Training Academy, we've created an additional 2 jobs for unemployed youth in the area, bringing the total number of full-time jobs created through Solana Energy barely 2 months after the setup of the actual business to a total of 16. As the Academy moves into 2023, courses are going to open to the public, and a big effort and a big focus from the Solana team is going to be around building in demand-led skills training. And what that really means is making sure that the Academy can feed into projects that are happening in the region as well as in South Africa, and a way in which we can provide the skills that are so desperately needed by EPC contractors that are doing these big developments. The second part of Solana Energy really consists of what we refer to as our commercial generation division. And through the generation projects, Solana will install a minimum of 2.5 megawatts of solar energy on rooftops of medium to large industrial companies within the Umlatuzi and King Setswayo district in its first year of operations. And what we are doing is focusing specifically on suppliers of goods and services to South 32. Providing access to clean, low-cost energy in return for long-term power purchase arrangements helps these businesses reduce their carbon footprint, lower their overall cost of energy, and become more financially secure. And in turn, these long-term power purchase agreements are really important to Solana because it allows the new business to establish a really solid revenue base that we can then feed into future investment and expansion. And importantly, what these projects do is support South 32's ESG goals as it seeks to reshape its business and value chain for a low carbon future. And it goes without saying that these generation projects create jobs, initially through the construction phase and longer term via the operations and maintenance of these plants. In total, we've identified 4 projects that are part of our initial roadmap that we are starting with moving into the new year. These include providing grid-tied solar plants to 2 really important small suppliers of goods and services into South 32. We are also in discussions with the South 32 team to move a portion of their enterprise and supply development hub onto a fully managed solar solution. And we're also talking to one of the largest independent bus operators out of the King Setswayo district, all of whom are engaging with us actively on grid-tied solar plants. By March, April next year, we believe that we will be in a position where the first phase of the initial 2.5 megawatts of installed solar capacity would have been commissioned. The final side to the business, and this again is allowing us the opportunity to really straddle the market and to be able to truly democratize access to solar, is the residential markets division. And probably the one group that has borne the biggest brunt of load shedding have been homes and small businesses. And it's important that solutions in order to move people to a more secure and stable energy future for homes and small businesses in particular is something that we focus on. The latest estimates at the moment suggest that in South Africa, just 0.5% of residential homes, of South Africa's 18 million homes, have solar installed. And the current and long-term forecasts are that load shedding is going to continue for the next few years unabated. The pressure that this is going to place on households is going to intensify as alternative energy sources become a must. And the main issue really affecting rapid adoption on the residential side for solar is that not many people can afford an investment upfront of anywhere between 150 to 250,000 Rand in cash in order to invest in solar. And very few companies in South Africa are offering pre-funded solutions to homeowners. And accessing finance via your home loan or through the banks is not always an easy process. And if we look at research that was conducted initially in the US and latterly in South Africa, what it suggested is that if you can go into the residential market and offer fully funded solar solutions, you have the ability to increase demand immediately by as much as 60%. So that is a really, really important aspect of the actual plan, because through the residential market, what we are able to do is to develop, create, support even more jobs and franchisees. In early 2023, Solana Energy will launch into the residential markets in this area, and we will offer a range of solar solutions to homeowners. These are simple, hassle-free options that include cash to rent, cash purchases, rent to own, or evergreen contracts that reduce the monthly costs and save homeowners a significant amount of money, providing them with alternative energy and backups to eliminate the impact of load shedding. And we plan to develop our residential market to a minimum base of 150 homes by very early in the new year. And the growth of this market segment is going to be, as I mentioned, a significant job creator. So what this project does is demonstrate how effective partnerships between corporates and beneficiaries of ESD funding ought to be managed. Senior management from South 32, comprising finance, the ESD teams, supply chain, corporate affairs, and the operations teams, have been heavily involved in the entire business development process and have really critically informed the shape of the plan. And it's this collaborative approach and shared commitment to strengthening and investing in our communities that has been the driving force behind the project being set up in record time, and already with really positive socioeconomic outcomes through new jobs and skills. And I think at this point, finally, I would also like to acknowledge the role that was played by the Absa team, who have been absolutely vital in providing critical insight, asking questions, and supporting the development of the overall business. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Ahmed. Before I hand over to Talhah, are there any questions from the audience? If you want to raise your hand, we'll unmute your mics. Right. Give me one moment then to switch presentations. So copies of the presentation will be made available post this if there are any questions. Otherwise, you do have my email as well.
Mark, there is one question currently.
Yes, I can't see it coming up. Who's there?
It is Denina Erasmus.
Janine, you want to go ahead with your question?
Hi, it's Denine Erasmus from Business Day. It wasn't clear for me from the presentation. Could you maybe just specify exactly what type of training?
Sorry, Danae, we lost you a little bit. You broke up. Please, could you repeat the question?
Hi, it's Denine from Business Days. I'm just asking if you can just maybe just specify exactly what training the Academy is offering. So what will the students be qualifying as?
Okay, great. Thanks for the question, Denine. The initial phase of training through the Academy was a 10-week, very specialized program. And the intent behind the initial training was for us to recruit and find individuals from the area that we could put to a fairly intensive training program in order to develop them to be absorbed into the business. So it is a lot broader and a lot more specific or general, I would say, than some of the courses we're going to be offering. But the Academy is very specialized from a solar training point of view. So, we offer courses on general solar installations. We offer courses on, the theory behind solar. We offer courses, that effectively allow these young candidates to be able to take the SAPVIA Green Card exam. And all of our content that we provide is something that we have shared with SAPVIA, and it's part of the accreditation process. So really the ultimate, qualification is you can qualify as a solar installer with the full Green Card accreditation. But within the solar value chain, Denine, there are a number of different courses that we are going to offer, to students based on the interest and based on the demand out in market. And an example of that, if I could use the one is on the energy auditing side. As the market grows and develops, there's going to be a demand for trained individuals who can conduct these audits, either residentially or through commercial projects, and be able to provide these services to EPC developers and to homes. We're talking about the design of solar systems, as a course that will be offered through the academy as well. And that's looking at, the current designs for home solutions. It's looking at designs for commercial generation projects and how to think about designing solar systems. There are courses on repairs and maintenance, because that is obviously a big component of the value chain, and we want to make sure that we've got that covered. And then also on the ongoing maintenance side and operations side, there are courses that prepare young kids to be able to pick up jobs within that industry. So I know it's a bit, it's quite a bit, Deneen, and we'd be happy to share with you a little bit more detail around the specific courses that are offered. But it's really covering courses across the value chain, and the ultimate is that you can qualify via your green card as an accredited solar installer.
Any other questions from the audience?
Thanks.
Before I hand on? Other than I'm going to hand it to you.
Thank you, Mark. As Ahmed outlined at the start of his presentation, climate risk is something that is very real for us. And as South32 is a global mining and metals company, we acknowledge that we have an important role to play in responding to the risks and opportunities of climate change, and to produce the metals that support the transition to a low carbon world, and to do so in a way that seeks to minimize our impact. Aluminium is one of those metals that's critical for the transition to a green economy. And Hillside Aluminium, South Africa's only producer of primary aluminium and the largest producer of primary aluminium in the Southern Hemisphere, has an important role to play in this region in fulfilling that purpose. As South32, we believe in making a difference, and our purpose is to make a difference by developing natural resources, improving people's lives now and for generations to come. And this project is just one of those examples of how we do that. In general, our community investment projects are aligned to 4 key pillars, focusing on education and leadership, good health and social well-being, economic participation, and natural resource resilience. The Solana Energy project that we undertook in partnership with the team here is really one of those projects, unique projects, that hits home on all of those elements. Can go to the next slide, thanks. So as Hillside Aluminium, when we looked at partnering with Solana for this, a project that for the region that we are operating in, one of the most important commercial hubs in South Africa, it was very important for us to see as a big employer, contributor to the fiscus employer, big employer in this region, and how we can help our value chain and our communities benefit from this transition to solar energy. And this will really help businesses in Hillside supply chain specifically as well, because the investment in solar is something that initial capital investment is something that holds back the transition for a lot of small businesses as well as small households in the region. And by combining the ESD funding with this project, we are able to address a lot of those challenges that come with this program. Again, in our region, there is significant unemployment. And through this project, through creation of the jobs, the training, the upskilling, we are then trying to also alleviate some of the challenges that come with the high unemployment rate that's faced by South Africa. And this is really an example of ESD working action, providing the local economic opportunities through a combination of skills, job, economic participation, equitable access to energy, and driving investment that supports the region's transition to a lower economy. that's in reflection, the one thing that really comes out for me on this project is transformation has probably lost, or BEE has lost a lot of its shine in recent weeks, either because many companies treat it as a tick box compliance exercise, or a lot of corruption and things that are linked to BEE transactions and deals. And this is really a demonstration of how BEE can be done. When you take the BEE policy and you meet it with meaningful intent and you translate that into action, the impact that can be had on ordinary South Africans is significant. As Ahmed already mentioned, is that in the last, the speed at which this project has been executed has been phenomenal. In under a year, we already have a training academy established. We have 15 graduates that are going to be graduating tomorrow. This really is a demonstration of the entrepreneurial spirit that is needed in South Africa should we wish to address the challenges that we have in the with the unemployment rate at the moment. And yeah, so as South 32, we're very excited, and we look to the bright future for the lives that this project will touch going forward. Thanks.
Excellent. Thanks, Talhah. Before I hand over to the Absa team, I mean, maybe, Ahmed, you want to just talk a little bit about collaboration? I think it's one of the things that is a kind of touch point or factor in this entire program. You've got a big corporate, you've got a big bank, you've got an entrepreneurial business. Maybe just the importance of collaboration. You can't do these things on their own. Your thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, as I mentioned during my, talk a little while ago, and I think something that, Talhah, you've touched on as well. The reason we've been able to achieve success in the short term and, develop a plan, that I think there's a lot of excitement about within this region is, I think, entirely due to the partnerships that we've had, with South 32 and the support that we've received from Absa. Typically what happens within the ESD space is a company is obliged to spend a certain portion of their profits after tax on enterprise or supply development or socioeconomic development. And these very often sit either within the HR departments or, typically within finance departments of big companies. And it's really amongst people who don't have the time, are too stressed, have other priorities, and really view this form of funding and this form of investment as a tick box exercise. And I think what's made this different is the collaboration. From a South 32 point of view, there were senior executives that took a significant proportion of their time to dedicate to this project. Similarly, in our engagements with Absa, you'll get an opportunity to hear from Justin shortly, but through Justin, through Dumi, and through the corporate and investment banking team at Absa, there was a significant amount of time and resource that was put into helping us understand how this model could be developed. So, collaboration is at the heart of what we're doing, and, we think it is one of the key driving factors behind the success of the project so far, but will also be a key driver of the success of the project going forward.
Excellent. Thanks, Ahmed. With that, I'm going to hand over to Justin and Dumisani from the Absa team. Over to you guys.
Thanks. So I'm Justin Schmidt from Absa Relationship Banking. My colleague Dumisani, I'm sure, will introduce himself at some stage, probably after these slides. But I suppose the title, I'll type it in there, but for today it's probably Head of Renewable. So I look after three sectors in Absa. It's manufacturing, transport, logistics, and renewables. But for these purposes, we've looked at this from a renewable energy perspective. I think, that collaboration has been really exciting being part of this program. And I think what interests us here, or me as kind of a sector head, looking at the sector from very many angles, whether it's the funding of independent power producers, funding of the manufacturer that gets solar on their roof or the household, or just understanding kind of how we create access to markets for the SMEs, upskilling of those SMEs. There's a really nice blueprint that I suppose could be rolled out across the country here in bringing more people into this value chain that is is potentially a really good job creator, and one that creates good jobs going forward. So I think just that's been an aspect that we've really enjoyed as a team. To get into the slide, so I mean, look, I've thrown this in to give context of what we look at every day when we look at the sector. And just like number one, we do know we're in an energy crisis. I think the capacity constraints, the unreliability of the current fleet, we know that a lot of the power stations do need to be retired. So there is this massive energy gap that we have in South Africa, and we've known about it for a while. Clearly, we need to kind of address it through the integrated resource plan, through deregulation of the industry, through just bringing new generation on board. The other issue we have is that energy availability is deteriorating every year, given that aging fleet and the lack of maintenance on it. So I think everyone's got a role to play, and Eskom's made great strides. We've seen deregulation, but these are not short-term fixes. You've got to address these over the long term. So the REAP will come through, new power generation will come through, the unbundling of Eskom. I think all the right things are happening. But the point for me here is that how do you fix some of the crisis in the short term? And in the space that I look at in the bank, rooftop solar, households, SMEs building the solar, I think that's where you can quickly turn around power generation. And really, how does private sector get enabled? And I think, through this kind of community in Richards Bay, there's an impact. And I think the more this can be done nationally, we can make some dent in the current crisis, and I think businesses are. So if we can flick to the next slide, I just wanted to paint the picture with that. I do think we can, there is a quick investment to be made here. And I think the quickest way to address some of the crisis we're having is through the C&I market, so the commercial, industrial, and residential. You can build some of these solar installations. You spoke there about 2.5 megawatts. We've seen clients build 2.5 megawatt plants in within 3 months. And really, the more of those you do around the country, they're small impacts, but they make a big impact when you add all those values and volumes together. I think the other important point for me is that, so number one, you build those installations quickly, but you create jobs that, and these installers, you're not waiting for these mega projects that take 2 years to deliver. There's a solid pipeline, and we're going to need to produce more and more power going forward. We're currently addressing the energy shortfalls and the crisis. The economy needs to grow, so we'll always need new capacity. And what excites me about the C&I and residential space is that these small installers can have a pipeline and kind of have good revenue and sustain jobs going forward. So really, we address the crisis, but you upskill people that can continue building quality installations going forward. So I think, just the other point is that we do see ourselves as having an important role to play, like all the other colleagues and other people in this industry, to support more sustainable energy resources. The good thing is these sustainable energy resources actually make business sense. So, our business clients are investment in solar and batteries. One, because it's a sustainable source, but also because it's a good business case for them. So we've been encouraging, and I think the energy audits, things like that, driving people to go to energy efficiency. Those are core principles, and the more people that are selling those concepts, the better. And I think that's what's exciting about upskilling people in the academy as well. To reduce your power and then invest in this. And not just the big corporates, it's the SMEs themselves that are using power to have experts talking to them about what they can do about their energy usage and then their generation. I think also for us, it's important to be kind of part of the solution, not just selling a product, selling loans, having the quality conversations, making sure that, that the right sort of investments are made, that these solar installations are quality, and then you get the benefit over 20 years, but also the individual, the company, the household that's moving forward with this, that they make the right decision. And often that's the informed decision. So again, places like the academy, upskilling people, those are some of the positive aspects we see And people aren't just selling a product like us as a bank. We would prefer not to be just selling a product. What's also exciting for us is that, you know, we've got a strong SME focus and really kind of upskilling these SMEs, creating long-term sustainability in their businesses in the renewable sector, but just as job creators in the economy. I think was again what drew us to kind of working with the team here. Yeah, in terms of the rooftop solar industry, I think an interesting thing we've seen this year is that 1 in 2 applications have battery integration. So to that point I was making, that, you know, we can address the energy crisis through programs like this and through investing locally and nationally. There has been an adoption, increasing volumes from our side as a bank of clients building installations, but also then integrating it with batteries. Battery integration is its own kind of you know, different skill set. You need to make sure that how you're installing it meets the specifications, and again, kind of giving people the opportunity to know how to install this is key for us. Yeah, the Sapphire program, I think, in your question on kind of what the skill sets the guys are getting and the ladies are getting, for us as a bank, knowing that people are following standards is really important. You know, the deregulation of the industry has been very important from a government perspective, you know, increasing the thresholds, etc. But ultimately, these are 20-year, 25-year installations that people have to have on their roofs. So knowing that there's a standard that's followed, you know, it hasn't been perfect in the industry, and Sapphire have re-looked that program. But I do think if you have a minimum standard of what you have to do in building an installation, it makes the banks, it makes the owners of these installations, and then the utilities themselves, you know, the municipalities and Eskom, we can all be a lot more comfortable that as this industry grows, there's quality. So I think that's a really overlooked component, you know, that ultimately the end user needs to know that there's quality in terms of that installation. Again, that's things that the Academy kind of supports. Do me the last 2 bullets. Yeah, sorry, I haven't followed what's on the slide. I've just kind of spoken to my points that I wanted to make there. But do you want to jump in for the last 2 points there?
Thanks, Justin, and hello everybody again. Yeah, as Justin has mentioned, quite an exciting project for us. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Enterprise and Supply Chain Development. And, you know, as a bank, we've seen an opportunity to assist our corporate clients in the main to achieve their transformation, BBBE scorecard and ESG objectives with using some of our financing solutions. I think we've worked with South32 on Solana for quite some time now. I did like the speed of execution of this project. I was impressed by that. So I think there's a point that's been mentioned on ESD being in action. I think this is a great example of that. From an Absa perspective, I think this project, you know, fits very well with our commitment to SME development and corporate value chains. So how we impact as a bank, how we impact our society in a positive way. But if you go through some of the discussion points that we've made, it's very clear that you can play around in a very, very effective way the various elements of the BBBE scorecard, as well as the scorecards of ESG. I think in particular, the education and skills development has come out strongly in this space, and as Absa, we've agreed to support the project from a finance and personal training, personal and business finance training, because we see a need from a SME in general that they struggle sometimes to put their business case in a way that investors or lenders will be interested in supporting their business. So you know, we are starting already at the grassroots level. So the students that are at the academy at the moment, we have managed to expose them to that type of intervention. So we're quite happy about that. And then, of course, the environmental sustainability, as well as just enterprise development, overall has been quite key for us in this project. So yeah, we see it as a blueprint. I think the future is bright for this project. I often joke with the guys that we have our own light bulb moment here, or a solar moment. Because it is quite impressive what this project will produce. And I think, yeah, maybe I'll just stop here and see if there's any questions that come out from a bank perspective. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. I'll open up to the floor, but I mean, maybe just a comment both for Dumisani, but also Ahmed. I mean, one of the big criticisms of renewable energy projects in South Africa is the time that it takes to get them to fruition. I mean, what's been a real standout for this has been the time, you managed to turn it around from conception to getting it up and running. I mean, within 12 months. I mean, I think that's maybe one of the real standout elements of this particular project. I don't know if either of you'd like to add some comment around that.
So, Dumi, maybe I'll take this one. Yeah, thanks, Mark. I think, just to talk about the speed, of execution. And again, I think it talks to, the strength of the collaboration between the different parties that have all contributed to this project. I think it's what's allowed the project to happen so quickly. We concluded agreements for Solana Energy at the end of June, and I think on the 10th of September, we had the Academy opened, which was literally 10 weeks later. And, we already quite far down the line in terms of the initial phase of generation projects and all of the development works done already for the launch of the residential markets. And I think for us, it's really about, all of the issues spoken about by Justin that Talhah's mentioned, that we've touched on. These are such significant issues for us to come to grips with and to deal with and to have solutions with, that there is no time to wait. And we think also from a timing point of view, Mark, just having all of the conditions perfectly aligned, lower costs to install solar, sort of the rate of adoption based on the different types of solutions, all of these point to that perfect moment in time where, everything does come together. And so I think we've been fortunate in that, we've had a lot of support and, the collaboration's been fantastic. But I think we are really on a mission. We want to try and get this project up and running quickly. We want to make a difference within this area as quickly as possible.
Nisa, I see your question in the chat. Is there any other questions from the floor that you'd like to address? Perfect. So the question that's just come from the chat relates to the value of the investment. So they're not disclosing an individual value for the investment because it involves multiple moving parts for it across the different projects. They will be reporting back the impact in terms of job creation, impact on local economy, etc. There are some figures that are in the projections in terms of impact, but the individual funding is not being disclosed due to the nature of the partners involved. But happy to take that discussion offline if there are further questions around impact. Any other questions from the floor? We will also be sharing presentations if you want to do any follow-up questions, or if you'd like to connect with any of the speakers, we will share that with you as well. You guys will got my contact details, but happy to share that. And then as I said, there is some images of the Academy that we will also be able to circulate. There's some video, etc. So feel free to interact with us. This is an ongoing engagement, and we are looking forward to sharing what we think is quite a unique funding model, but also an execution and speed of execution. I think as South Africans, we've become quite frustrated at the slow pace of change. This, I think, is a highlight of a success story that we can talk to and say, this is a model that other people can emulate, and it can be emulated in other regions as well. If there are no other questions, I'm just going to give another 60 seconds to see if there are any other questions from the floor. Otherwise, I will conclude there. Thanks, Nisa. I've got your message there. I'll bomb it straight through after this. Excellent. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you everybody for your time. We will be giving you an update on an ongoing basis. You know where to find me, and we look forward to engaging over the next couple of weeks. For those we don't see before the end of the year, have a safe festive season, and hopefully we have lights on in 2023. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Cheers, guys.
Thank you. Yes.
Thanks. Thanks, everyone. Cheers.
Thanks.